Hi everyone, thank you guys so much for inviting me to participate. So I know a couple people in the audience. So my name is Samantha Kriegel. I'm the Vice President of Development and Communications for an organization called Teach for China. And what we do is we serve low-income schools in mainland China. We recruit top graduates, mostly from China, from places that you would have heard of, Beida, Fudan, Tsinghua, etc., but also from the US. And we recruit and place these graduates as teachers in low-income public schools. We teach middle school and upper primary, so about from roughly grade 3 to grade 9, which is the end of compulsory education in China. We teach core curriculum subjects, and our goal is to help our kids do better in school. We believe that education, I got to hear a little bit of the last panel, and I think there's a lot of people in this room that are interested in creating impact, right, and creating change. And Teach for China started because we believe education is the key to all change. And that with better education, that is the only way to systemically address issues of poverty, equity, civil society, etc. So we have today about 300 teachers in over 80 schools in Yunnan and Guangdong. We are pretty young, we're 5 years old. Our long-term vision is that not only will our teachers serve for 2 years and help kids right now today as teachers, but we aspire to the same model that our sister organization Teach for America, which some of you might have heard of, or Teach First in the UK does, which is that after 2 years of teaching, almost all of our fellows, our teachers, stay in the education or the NGO space. Some of them don't. Some of them go on to business schools. Some of them go on to private sector careers. But our goal is to help create a movement of lifelong leaders in education. So that's a little bit about Teach for China. What I said before, though, is I think important to keep in mind. We're actually looking for people in whom that 2-year experience is us investing in them. As you guys know, if you start looking at NGOs in China, China is a very, very difficult place to operate in. Either as a for-profit, so my previous life, I used to work for McKinsey, it's really hard to run a business in China. I know many people know that. It's really, really hard to run an NGO in China. So we are trying to take people who we think are incredibly bright, incredibly passionate, and say spend 2 years doing good, but also spend 2 years learning how to operate in that environment. So that's one comment I would have, is that what we're trying to do is we're trying to provide service directly, but we're also trying to create a movement of young people who will go on in many ways that we probably can't even predict to start their own organizations, some of which might be definitely on the spectrum of social enterprise in terms of having an income model, some of which will not have an income model. I mean, we're a straight up charity. We don't have an income model, and it would be, I still believe that there is, perhaps it is not, it's probably controversial for me to say so in this room when we're talking about, impact investing. I still think that there are certain areas in the charitable world that do not lend themselves to being social enterprises because they are fundamentally things that don't work, that don't have an income model. I happen to think education is one of them. However, we at Teach for China also recognize that education as a space is a huge business in China. And so we're eager to have people that can potentially build organizations that sit in that middle part of that space, that could have income models, that could benefit the communities that we serve. So I guess this is my very long answer saying Teach for China is looking for a 2-year commitment, but we're actually looking for a long-term, lifetime commitment from our people. That being said, there are other ways that you can support us, but yes. We're a service organization.
So I guess this question is more for Teach for China and Pim. So you guys talked about long-term lifetime investment or commitment in this area. So how exactly do you do that? So how do we expect, say, a Teach for China fellow after 2 years of teaching in a village in China, how do you expect them to continue support and commit to either Teach for China or education field in general? Are there any specific ways you guys are doing it?
So let me answer that question in 2 parts. I mean, the first part I think is just what our vision is for our alumni. So our hope and our aspiration is that after 2 years in these classrooms, that our alumni will have a first-hand experience of what the challenges are that these communities face, what the challenges are that the children face, the challenges are that the schools themselves face, and that they will then be inspired to continue advocating, right, for change. During the course of the 2-year fellowship, we provide a lot of training and support. And actually, if you looked at our cost structure, most of our costs are actually around recruiting and then training our fellows. Our fellows actually make the same amount of money as any public school teacher in China, meaning almost nothing. I mean, the average public school teacher in China makes less than 2,000 renminbi a month. So some of that training obviously is strictly pedagogical. It's teaching them how to be teachers, right? Because that's what we do. But we also spend a lot of time trying to teach them how to be leaders. And more actually, we are trying to teach them how to be strong entrepreneurial leaders, because we see the opportunity in China to build, as the NGO sector in China opens up and expands and the government creates more space for NGOs to operate, we see there being a huge opportunity for people to start social enterprises and NGOs. So we do that. We have mentor programs, we provide different training programs throughout the fellowship, and then we continue to do that. We have an alumni impact team that works with our alumni. Part of that is just social networking and creating a community, because I agree very much, you know, having a community is the best way to learn, and so people learn from each other, and we share best practices, we share experiences. But we are also, as we go further down this journey, we're becoming more systematic in terms of trying to have structured programming for our alumni. So that's the way that we try to approach it.
As far as I know, the first batch of your teachers have already graduated from this program. Yeah. So can you give us some specific example of what the teachers are doing right now? And
so we're in our 5th year, so we have our 5th class of fellows in the field right now. We have about 150 alums today. As of June, that number will go up to about 300. So our N is still very small, but the current core of alumni, about a large number of our alumni stay in education. So about 30 to 40% stay in education. So that might be continuing on as teachers. Most of them, quite frankly, don't stay necessarily in rural areas because they just can't make enough money to live. But they continue on, and many of them have aspirations to start their own schools. About another third of our alumni go on to graduate school, and there's a huge variance there. Like I said, we have some in business school, we have some in education school, we have some in public policy. You have to understand that we're recruiting people right out of college, right? So these are people who are with us basically from the age of 21 to 23, 24. And then we have, what does that leave us? About 20, 25, 30%. They go in and they go into the private sector and work. Again, there is a huge variation, so we are very excited because last year we had 2 firsts. We had our first alum who went to work for Goldman Sachs. That was very exciting. And then we had our first alum who actually was hired by the Yunnan Provincial Education Bureau, the same bureau who initially actually didn't want Teach for China in their schools, now has an alum. So, you know, our vision is that I say to people, look, I would be unhappy if none of our alums stayed as teachers, but I also would be not happy if all of our alums stayed as teachers. Because the reality is, as with most of these big problems that we all want to work against, education is incredibly complicated. It will require input from across all sectors, right? So we're looking to launch people on what we call high impact pathways, and we believe those pathways include government. In China, that's unavoidable. Includes, you know, in the education sector itself, public and private, and also includes private sector, corporate support. Maybe that means people are going to become philanthropists. Maybe that means they're going to start an ed tech company, which you know, can create technology that will improve access, you know, to quality instruction in rural parts of China. So that's a little bit of a picture of what they're doing now. We obviously, I mean, Teach for China has a lot of experience and perspectives on this because we recruit people directly from mainland China. And I have to say, when I first met Teach for China, one of the questions that I asked our CEO that I was most skeptical about, frankly, was how will you find young mainland Chinese graduating from these universities that want to go and spend 2 years making no money, living in really difficult conditions? Again, in my previous life, and I think probably a lot of you similar background, working for McKinsey or working for a bank, I know that there are many, many extremely bright and capable mainland Chinese, but I had not myself met very many who were interested in doing service. I would say, actually, I've been pleasantly surprised. Again, when we're recruiting at Beida, we're trying to recruit the same people that McKinsey recruits or the Goldman recruits. We're looking for exactly the same qualities. And for example, I don't have the numbers for this year, but last year we received 3,000 applications. I think that there is a cultural shift going on in the mainland where people are much more aware of these social problems and that there is an opportunity for them to play a role, whether that be as a philanthropist or in terms of directly providing service. But I would also say, again, this is from the perspective of an organization trying to run a service program, there remain some structural barriers. So I'll give you an example. The Chinese government gives incentives to employers to employ new college graduates, which is part of what they do to kind of try to maintain high levels of employment. Our fellows, in some cases, because they are not fresh graduates, so even though they're just 2 years out of college, and they haven't had a real paying private sector job, are actually on some campuses banned from participating in on-campus recruiting. If you look at Teach for America, I'll give you guys a great statistic, which would inspire us all. So today, when I graduated from college around the time that Teach for America started, I'm much older than everyone in this room, so that was like 20 plus years ago. When I graduated from Harvard, almost no one applied to Teach for America. Like, you knew about it, you knew it was a good thing, no one applied. Today, about 20% of the class, graduating class at Harvard, applies to Teach for America. And the reason they do is because they realize that it's a selective program, they realize it's a way they can give back, but it's also a way that they can continue to learn, and it will be a credential for them. So it's a win-win. We have hopes that that will happen in China as well.